Hello. It's been a long time since I last spoke to you, and I've been wondering for some time as to what my next video would be about. And the other day, I was speaking to some students who are doing their MPhil and PhD from the Jadavpur University Women's Studies. And I thought that I would be talking about the pronoun because it came up as a question. And I thought that maybe I could make a video about the history of the pronoun and in particular about how we very often still make the mistake of thinking the he as a gender neutral pronoun, man as a gender neutral noun, brotherhood as a gender neutral noun, fraternity as a gender neutral noun. So how does the male magically become gender neutral and how deeply patriarchal that is? I think that is what this video is going to be about. So really, if we have to go to the history of how this begins to happen, the first date that I think we would like to keep in mind would be 1375. Why? Because of a particular sentence that occurs in a book that is published in that year, 1375. The book in question is William and the Werewolf, and the sentence is like this. It is, each man hurried till they drew near where William and his darling were lying together. Each man hurried till they. Each man hurried till they. So way back in 1375, you already have the usage of the plural they for a single man. We go on to the next most important date, and I think that this is probably the most important of all dates, 1540. Now, this is the reign of King Henry VIII, one of the most annoying English monarchs ever. 1540 is when a royal decree is issued which orders the teaching of William Lilly's Latin grammar. Now, William Lilly's Latin grammar continues to be taught across England till the 1800s. So this is a very, very powerful textbook. Now, let us look at one sentence in William Lilly's Latin grammar. The sentence is, Rex et Regina Beati. Rex et Regina Beati. Now, this sentence simply means, let the king and the queen be blessed, or blessed are the king and the queen. But however, what we really have to note over here is Beati, that particular word, because Beati is actually plural male, right? So what really happens there is that we have a sense of the plural male that is being used to refer to subjects that are male and female. Why does this happen? Now, it actually happens because the logic that is given is quite extraordinary. The logic is that the masculine gender is more worthy than the feminine, and the feminine is more worthy than the neuter. So when we actually talk about, the third gender, yeah, or indeed the second sex, we know that this kind of hierarchization can be traced back at least as far back as 1540. So that is something that we should perhaps keep in mind. Yeah. So what really happens then is that the English grammarians, they adopt it. They transpose the worthiness doctrine to English, and so the general becomes he. That is the way it begins to happen. Let us look, for example, at something that happened in 1745. Let us look at Anne Fisher's grammar textbook. And what happens with Anne Fisher's grammar textbook is that very much this use of the he as the universal pronoun is reaffirmed. Yes? But there would be some exceptions. So for example, Coleridge in Anima Poetae preferred it, but obviously it didn't quite catch on. Now, the most interesting thing that happens in this history of he being gender neutral actually happens in the 19th century. Now, listen to this. Suffragists, yeah, who, as you know, were campaigning for votes for women, suffragists said that if he and man are universal and the voting laws refer to man and he, then logically women should be allowed to vote too. Simple logic, you can't beat it. Feminists have always tried to be logical, and then illogical patriarchy has subverted it, or they haven't subverted it, that would be too intelligent of them. They have just suppressed it. And so therefore, when the suffragists basically said, listen, I understand that you are saying that he and man are universal. Well, if he and man are universal, then surely he and man includes women. So if he and man includes women, then surely women, purely on the basis of English grammar, have the right to vote. At which point people said, yes, generic, yes, absolutely, except when it is used to empower women. So they said, no. We are not going to allow this when it comes to empowering women. So when it comes to empowering women, we are even going to change the rules of grammar in order to frustrate the attempts at women to get the vote. Classic patriarchy. Now, what really happens is that by the time we come to 1840, an act of interpretation, yes, there is such a thing, an act of interpretation is passed, according to which he means men and women, 1840. 1867, we have the Reform Act, 1867, in which it is said that he and man only referred to certain men, not to all men. And in the 19th century, you would be very interested to know that in 19th century America, men and women slaves were called it. So therefore, the pronoun he and she were not applicable to slaves at all. Slaves were actually referred to, the pronoun that was used for slaves was it. And we also come to 19th century, we find that in the 19th century, Dickens used the singular they in Pickwick Papers. And so early modern medical textbooks refer to intersex people as they, and indeed Virginia Woolf also uses the pronoun they to refer to Orlando in her very famous novel, which is also a love letter to the lady that she was in love with at that time, Vita Sackville West. So really this, I think this very quick run through the history of the pronoun they and he is, I think, making it clear as to how complicated the history is. So it originally starts off as being sort of referred to men, then it becomes gender neutral, then it becomes very specific to men, and now it is gender neutral again. But what I think we really have to understand that in this whole history, trans persons have not been spoken about, and now I think, you know, it is becoming more and more acceptable for trans persons to actually claim the pronoun they for themselves, even when they refers to a single person. Of course, Judith Butler being perhaps the most famous example of somebody who actually now believes that they best describes them. So this is basically a very short video that I wanted to make in order to sort of try and understand exactly what this vexed history of they pronoun is. Can it be used in the singular, and can it be used in a gender neutral way? Absolutely it can be. So the next time you see somebody who is using the very clumsy he or she, please correct them, because he or she is not sufficiently inclusive. They is absolutely acceptable when you're talking about a single person. So and if you don't know the gender of the person, if the person does not specifically say which gender they are, or if you're unaware of the gender of that person, you can certainly use they to refer to them. Okay, thank you so much. Maybe my next video is going to be a little longer than this, But please stay safe, and we shall meet again very soon.